The day the veteran slipped past the nursing home doors was the day his heart finally refused to stay quiet. Snow fell in slow, heavy sheets across the small American town, and each flake felt like a reminder of everything he had lost: his name, his home, his dignity, and the life he once built with his own hands. The world had decided he was finished, that his strength belonged to the past, and that the rest of his days should be spent in a narrow room that smelled of medicine and silence. But as his boots touched the frozen ground and his old dog pressed close to his leg, something inside him awakened and refused to go back to sleep. If you believe in the silent hero and second chances, take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to this channel, because stories like this only survive when people like you believe they matter. His name was Samuel Carter, a former U.S. Army veteran who had carried the weight of service long after the uniform was gone. Years earlier, an injury followed by paperwork mistakes and distant relatives had pushed him into a system that moved faster than his voice could keep up with. His modest house, the one he built room by room after returning from war, was taken from him under legal words he barely understood. His only constant through it all was Max's aging German shepherd mix, whose loyalty never wavered even when the world did. Max slept at his feet in the nursing home room and watched the door every night, as if guarding the last piece of Samuel that still felt free. That morning, Samuel had overheard a whispered conversation in the hallway about a property auction happening downtown. A list of addresses was mentioned, and one of them struck him like a blow to the chest. It was his address, the small white house with the crooked porch and maple tree out front. The realization that strangers would bid on the place where his life once lived filled him with a quiet, burning resolve. He did not shout or beg. He simply packed what little he had clipped Max's leash and walked out while the snow softened the sound of his escape. The auction was held outside under a gray sky that felt heavy with judgment. People gathered in coats and polished boots, holding coffee cups and smartphones. They saw only an old man and a dog standing near the back, their clothes worn, their faces tired. Samuel watched as his house was described like a product reduced to numbers and flaws. The porch damage, the old wire in the foundation issues. Each word felt like another piece of his past being stripped of meaning. Max sensed the tension and pressed his nose into Samuel's gloved hand, steady, grounding, loyal. As the bidding began, Samuel realized he had nothing to offer except presence. No money, no influence, no plan. When the price dropped low enough, a few investors chuckled, seeing no real value left in the place. And then something unexpected happened. Max suddenly pulled hard toward the side of the property where the old shed stood, half buried in snow. The dog began digging frantically, ignoring calls, ignoring the crowd, his instincts screaming louder than reason. People stared, annoyed and curious, as the dog uncovered a rusted metal hatch hidden beneath years of neglect. The auctioneer paused. A few bidders scoffed. But Samuel felt a chill deeper than the winter air. He remembered that hatch from years ago, something his father had sealed off and warned him never to open without reason. It led to an underground storage space built during another era, a space tied to family history he never fully understood. Authorities were called, thinking it a safety concern, and the auction was halted. What they found beneath that hatch would change everything. The basement extended far beyond the footprint of the small house. It was reinforced with old steel beams and sealed containers marked with faded government insignia. Inside were documents and assets tied to land rights, mineral ownership, and wartime contracts, once managed by Samuel's grandfather, who had quietly invested and protected them through generations. Over time, the ownership had been forgotten, buried beneath legal confusion and lost records. But those records were still there, intact, preserved in the cold, dark waiting. Experts were brought in, and the value stunned everyone. The land rights alone were worth over $20 million, tied to resources that had recently become critical. The crowd that once ignored the old veteran now whispered his name with disbelief. Samuel stood quietly, hand resting on Max's head, as officials explained that he was the rightful heir and that the auction was void. His house was not only his again, but the legacy beneath it was finally uncovered. The news spread quickly through the town and beyond. Reporters came, cameras flashed, and questions flew, but Samuel remained calm. He did not smile for attention or speak of revenge. He spoke only of fairness and gratitude. He returned to the nursing home, not in anger, but with paperwork and proof and Max by his side. Within days, a legal hold was lifted, and he walked out officially, this time free not because someone allowed it, but because truth demanded it. Samuel did not move into luxury or leave the town behind. He restored his house, keeping the porch crooked and the maple tree standing. He funded repairs at the nursing home that once held him, not to erase the past, but to improve the future for others who had no voice. He set up scholarships for veterans with service injuries and donated land for community housing. The wealth changed his circumstances, but it did not change his soul. Max aged quietly in the warmth of the restored home, sleeping near the fireplace, content and proud. Samuel spent his mornings walking the snowy paths and his evenings reading by the window, watching the world move without him, yet no longer against him. People who once passed him by now waved and nodded, recognizing not the money, but the dignity he carried. Just before the end of this story, take a moment to comment below and tell us what you believe matters more, money or dignity, because your words help shape the stories we share next. When spring finally came and the snow melted from the town, Samuel planted new flowers near the old, shed leaving the hatch sealed but respected. Some secrets he knew were meant only to remind, not to be used. The veteran who once escaped a nursing home to watch his life be sold stood now as proof that patience, loyalty, and quiet courage can outlast any system. And through it all, Max stayed by his side, the true guardian of a legacy that waited for the right moment to rise.